here we are, we're commemorating the life of Ronnie Blackmer. And let's start with you. What, you have a story or two, an impression?
Yeah, we never built that car. We never figured we could run with him, you know.
No, everybody told us, no, you're crazy, you can't beat Ronnie.
Yeah.
Well, and we
just
didn't.
wanted to go racing.
We didn't at first, but we went to Erie. The first night was State Line in the car, and the second night we went to Erie, and we couldn't find the place. We found it. We were late. Never been there. And they said, hurry up, you can go out in the third heat for the coupes. Oh, well, that's the one we didn't want to be in, with Ronnie and Skip. Well, they did let us start in the front row. I'd never been on the track. And they dropped the green, and I just got going pretty good, you know. I kept thinking, why aren't they going by, you know? I figured they'd be going by on both sides. Well, I won it. But I did see that Ronnie was right there on the last lap.
Yeah.
And he probably came from the back.
You came from the back, I'm sure.
Well, I went around, you know how you go around, get the flag. He come around, looked the car over, and waved at me. I didn't know he knew we were alive. You know, that was pretty cute.
That is a great story.
Yeah, we were pretty lucky.
Ron was always kind of the kingpin of that time period. Do you know why that is? What is it that made his car be that much better?
I always said he and Schnars were the best two drivers at State Line ever.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say which one was the best. I think Bobby had the advantage as a mechanic.
He knew
I think he was
suspension man.
Yeah.
Better. Yeah.
But I think Ronnie was equally as good as a wheelman. And then he will tell you, as you've seen on the tape, his father-in-law was Frank Rollman.
Yeah.
And he built ultralight cars.
Yep.
And everybody else put boilerplate on them, and you know. And so he had a head start with that Frank Rollman, his father-in-law. And I think he's just naturally a good driver.
Do you get a sense, was he competitive in the sense of a kind of a Tom Dill approach? You know, Tom Dill,
No, if I saw him behind me or in front of me or beside me, it didn't matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We didn't worry about it.
I don't think they ever touched.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
What made those little cars more fun too, they were faster than the late models. I mean, they had 427s in a Chevelle, and we were 2 seconds faster because we were lighter. Because one time I was in a hardware store in Warren, and my daughter and her husband lived there, and we did a lot of projects. And Ronnie saw me, I didn't see him. Hey, he said, I just live down the road, follow me down. So I did. Boy, a beautiful home and a basement. And he said, here, he gave me remember State Line, they'd sell mugs and they'd have the picture? Oh, I never bought one. He had one with my number.
Oh, really?
And he gave, I thought about bringing it up and give it to her, and I won't do that. But he gave it, he said, I was at a garage sale, and I found it, so I bought it for you. I only kept 4 trophies, and I kept that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I got rid of the rest of them. That was cute. That was good of him to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Good old days, there was the 27L, there was the 4 juniors, constantly out there on the track. What was your sense of Ronnie? You know, you were certainly late model, Ronnie was late model. You did some sportsman's class, but Ronnie did a lot of it.
Ronnie did a lot of it.
Yeah. What was your sense of him? What was your sense of Ronnie?
You know, when I first seen him, he was just a kid, and he was doing really well. But he had Frank Roman that was really good at what he'd done, and they done well together. We were friends at the racetrack, but I wouldn't say that we were really socialites. You know, we didn't gather together and stuff.
Right.
Matter of fact, he told me one time, he says, how comes I never met your old lady and stuff at the racetrack? I said, because I didn't want you to meet her. That's why. They were they were wild. They were a bunch. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Ronnie, as a competitor, did you get a sense that he was he a hot-headed guy? Was he an even-tempered guy? What kind of white guy was he?
Just the opposite.
Yeah.
Just the opposite. I've never seen him upset with anybody. As a matter of fact, one night we were sitting for driver introduction. We're in the lineup, sitting there while they're introducing us. All at once, I get hit in the back real hard. Well, we're sitting still. You can about snap my neck off, you know. Who's behind me but Ronnie? So I give him the look, you know, one of them. And even to this day, every time he sees me, he says, I know you don't believe me, but I did not do that. He says, it was that rotten whitehead behind me. He hit me and drove me into you. He says, I know you don't believe it, but that's the truth. That's okay, I'll believe it. But other than that, on the track, never had a problem with any of them guys, even Bobby or Squirting them. Of course, they didn't have to knock you around. They had good cars and they could beat you without knocking you around.
Yeah.
And they were good. He was a great friend and a generous guy. I don't care when you'd meet him. I mean, he was very nice, very nice. And boy, you can see that, what kind of a person he was, just by looking out there tonight and seeing the people that are here. I mean, I've seen people I haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
Years.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a real tribute tonight for the camera.
Yes.
We're at the Lakewood Rod and Gun, and it's a huge celebration of life of Ronnie Blackmer. It was a, wow, packed house.
We're going to miss him.
Yep.
We're sure going to miss him.
Well,
He was fun to be around.
How did your paths cross with Ronnie, Bucky?
We were at State Line Speedway, I'm talking 20 or 30 years ago, watching the Empire sprint cars.
Right.
All right. They were out there practicing. We were standing with Squirt Johns.
Yeah.
And one guy, he'd go out and he'd tell a picture of the car's plowing, so he made an adjustment. Went back out, a little loose now. He come in about 4 or 5 times with different stories, right? Finally, Squirt says, you know, they can fix that, don't you? I says, no. You set Blackmer's ass in that thing. He'll get it around the floor. Yeah.
So when you were there working for Sammy, 27L, but there was always the Ford Junior. I mean, he was a presence.
You bet.
And what did you wonder how the hell was he so successful?
I was in awe of that car.
Yeah.
Frank Roman built his cars. And there was nothing like the number 4, the fabulous number 4. Every week it had fresh paint on it. They had straightened the body out. And it ran as good as it looked.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just awesome with that car. Then the Ford Junior came along, and he was awesome with that too. I never saw a driver like Ronnie be so aggressive, yet clean. He'd race with anybody, never bump into him.
Yeah.
Never hit anybody. He was quite a guy. Never saw him spin out, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And he could avoid an accident like nobody I've ever seen. I mean, he'd be going wide open into a turn. If there was an accident, he drove around it.
Yeah.
He was under control at all times. He drove for Julian Busink one year. You remember the Fords that Julian used to build?
Yeah,
They were beautiful Ford cars, but he said he never drove anything so powerful in his life. He got to going around and he got on the back straightaway, got a little too high, he got up on top of the guardrail and buried the car on top of the guardrail. He said he never drove anything so powerful in his whole life.
I see him in long pants.
I can't, well, at the racetrack, yeah. Other than that, no. In wintertime, he had shorts on. Ronnie was a joy to be around. All the years that I knew him, he was a joy to be around. He was a gentleman in the car and on the street. He was a gentleman. I can't say any more good about him, but he was great.